What's up, Sub here? Wanted to kind of make a quick video discussing how we can get a scenario where, for example, a black cell weapon and a base weapon, right? One is paid, one is free, accidentally have different damage profiles or have different feature sets that make one better than the other. And as something honestly that happens kind of a bit more commonly with with these paid features, right? And so I'm having this conversation a little bit with Casey Masterpiece on Twitter, and and it comes up, right? How is it possible that uh, you know it, these changes come up from time to time, and when they do, it's always the paid version that is better, right? So think back to like way back in Verdansk, we had the Mac 10 was we had a paid version of that, right? It was a blueprint, I think, or it was in the battle pass. The paid part of the battle pass was a blueprint in that, I believe it was, where it had higher damage, right? It did a few more points of damage than the base one, and people were like, "Oh, this is ridiculous. It's pay to win." And then Activision came in and fixed it. And I think what my point when looking at this from the point of view of like development, right, has always been it's how do I put it? It's an actual easy thing to do if the team isn't all the teams that are working on these guns, they're not on top of it, right? So when my days of being in development, we would have situations like this crop up pretty frequently. And from everything Activision employees have said and either told me privately or they've posted and I've read about it, how their development process works. It's very similar to one of the companies that I worked for, right? So it's kind of like, so I feel like I can relate to how these things happen a little bit easier than someone who's never done software before. But the reality is, in these scenarios, you usually have multiple teams working together to create, these guns, for example. So let's take specifically the example of the DITR, right? You have one team that would create kind of the model of the gun, right? And they would determine how it shoots, how it sounds, how it looks, right? And then you have kind of a graphic team that comes and they create the skins for it and the camos, and that'll apply to it. And then you probably have another team that works on the physics of it, right? So they're the ones that are going to create the muzzle smoke animations and the reloads and all of that. And they're like a modeling team, right? So you have all these different teams working together on a model, right? And so they're going to pass builds and stuff back and forth. And what'll happen is there's probably a separate team working on black cells assets. Okay, they'll develop a series, an asset, a group of assets, right, for black cell. And what can end up happening is you can get a model, like let's call it the DITR 1.0 file, right? And that would be the model of the gun, how it behaves, and that'll be handed over to different teams to work on. And so there should be a central repository where that model is kept. But sometimes, that model isn't updated properly, right? Or somebody creates, somebody messes with the model and then they upload it and upload accidentally a previous model that overrides the file, right? So they might grab, it could be a simple matter of, you have three different DITR files on your desktop and you go to upload it and you grab the wrong one and you upload one with older assets. So how that could work in this scenario, for example, is you have the black cell team which grabbed DITR 1.0 file and they created the black cell version of it, and then you have the base model, the 1.0 DITR, and the company says, "Hey, we're going to go and we're going to get rid of muzzle smoke," right? So this is months ago, okay, before release, right? They're not doing it the day before, right? This is months in advance. And so some point in the future, they come out and they say, "Hey, we need to do we need to do an update to the muzzle smoke. We're going to get rid of muzzle smoke on guns." And everybody goes, "Yay!" Except for the people who have to do the work. They go, "Oh, that's more work to me." But those people go and they have to go and apply this new file form, this new parameters to their models, right? So the black cell team gets the new parameters and creates black cell DITR 1.1 and gets that up. And then the original modeler for the gun, right? Maybe they're on vacation, maybe they missed the memo, they don't update the base file. Okay. Or, like I said before, they They save it as 1.1, and then they grab the 1.0 file and they update that so they don't change anything. Now you have two different functions of the gun, right? Two different versions. They're two different models. They're not connected to each other directly. Um, the black cell and the other one. And these two files then get pushed to production, right? And so now you suddenly have a scenario where we have two different profiles of guns that aren't in sync with each other because the base file never got updated. Okay, these sorts of things, there can be multiple people or even multiple teams working on one gun, right? You could have a modeler team, you can have a physics team, right, making designing how the bullets work and kind of the under the table stuff. You could then have a damage profile, like a weapons balancing team, right? That goes through and edits the damage, the damage table. You can have an art team that is multiple people working on all the different blueprints, right? How does this blueprint look? How does this blueprint look, right? You could have a separate modeling team that might make, a masterclass version of it. And so they're all going to be messing with the base file. And so with all of those cooks in the kitchen and people pushing, commits from, different elements, it's very possible that somebody doesn't pull down the right base one, and then they work off of the wrong file. They're basically working off of an old file, and so when they update it, it resets the base model, for example. Or in this case, it never gets updated in the first place because everyone is fixing kind of their own little side projects, but nobody goes back to the original one to fix it. And that's possible. And especially given we know that Black Ops 6 was rolling out, so it could be that the person in charge of the 1.0 base model, they pushed it out. They were done. They're shipped off to Black Ops 6. They're not even working on the game anymore, right? They could be out of here. And so when the changes to Smoke came out, it just nobody updated that file, right? These sort of things happen in development all the time across every major company, and so it's extremely likely that when you have someone creating a base model of something and then other people creating derivatives of it later, if that person isn't constantly staying on top of the base model, which why would they? They're done. They finished their job and have probably moved on, right? That base model gets left behind somehow, right? That people decide we're going to do something different with this gun going forward, and no one's updating that base file. And then, la-di-da, we ship it, we get to the season, and all of a sudden, you've got two versions of the gun, two different damage profiles on the MAC-10, two different smoke profiles, right? Or smoke gadget, whatever plugins for the DITR, or any number of other, other features that incidentally come up. And so, it is very possible that, that these things, and I will say probable, that these things are unintentional. And the thing that confirms that the unintentionality of it, to me, is actually always how Call of Duty deals with it, which is as soon as these things crop up and become and people realize, oh my gosh, this is an issue, right? They go in and fix it. Okay. And so we saw that with the MAC-10, we saw that with the DITR, we've seen it with a number of other weapons that have cropped up over the 5 years we've played this game. And it's Activision, guys. If they did this intentionally, they'd advertise it and you'd know it. Okay. Like if it was a better version, you would know it because they'd tell you. So that's what I got for you today. That's my take on it. Definitely if you have questions, hit me up on Twitter, join the convo. Love to have you on there, but yep. Thanks for stopping by and I will catch you on the next one.